Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press. It's Monday, July 21st, 2025. Here at the Southern District of New York. Now we're going to talk about Epstein, Maxwell, and the rest. But first, I want to point out this is ground zero, actually, of it. There's the MCC, a now closed down federal jail where Jeffrey Epstein, that 10-hour video, it was right inside there, up top. Over here, 500 Pearl Street, where Judge Berman, who got the first filing of the Jeffrey Epstein case to unseal the transcripts, is based. And over behind it, the tall building on top, is 40 Foley, where Ghislaine Maxwell was put on trial and where Judge Nathan is now high above the building in an appeals court function. We covered the trial. We wrote the book, Maximum Maxwell. You can find it. But here's what's happened. On Friday, after 5 o'clock, there were two filings. First, Todd Blanche made an appearance in each case and then filed to unseal before Judge Berman in the Epstein case and before Judge Nathan, making it returnable on the 25th, which is Friday. I think the judges are going to issue their own scheduling order. And I think even for the grand jury transcripts, there would have to be somehow notice to people mentioned in it. I'm not sure. Now, the larger kahuna, which came up, Alan Dershowitz, by the way, raised it. We'd raised it before, but Alan, everyone is focused on like former Epstein lawyer. He's also a former Trump lawyer. Alan Dershowitz said, which is true, that there's probably a lot more information in the case before Judge Preska. He was actually in that case. He's been in those cases. He's defended himself against allegations of being involved. And so for that reason, what he mentioned, which is true, is that in documents that are already public, there's mention of Bill Richardson. There's also photographs. George Mitchell, well, both of whom are now deceased, I believe, and some other individuals. He specifically took on Ransone and said that it was false, that what she claimed she had was false. Anyway, there's a lot of material, and we're going to be covering all the twists and turns this week that could begin at any moment. At any moment. We're also covering inside SDNY the ongoing trial of Roman Storm of Tornado Cash. We've written a book. It's called Crypto Tornado. But we're probably going to do a second one, at least at the time of the verdict, because it really comes down to, is a software developer responsible for how their software is used? That's what Roman Storm has said on a podcast. And the analogy might be, is Microsoft, if the mafia uses PowerPoint or a spreadsheet or Excel, is Microsoft. Now, of course, this is different. They're going to say he knew, and that's what the big fight is, about whether an expert saying what they could have done to prevent this, but also what they could have done, what they were required to do, and what does it mean for the whole reason that people, I don't know. There's a libertarian strand here, and we're following it deeply. We're also following the tail end of the American Association of University Professors versus Rubio. The closing arguments are at 10 o'clock. We just covered the sort of final skirmish on evidence. Mr. Wilson's testimony will come in. He's an underling of John Armstrong, who was pretty much ripped apart on Friday. Not ripped apart. He said what he thought, but I think it's going to come back to haunt him in the ruling. Maybe he shouldn't have said what he thought. I don't know. That's why I have to say Judge Young is right. Having a trial is the best way. Sometimes people screw up and say things they shouldn't. That really reveals what's happening. In any event, there are two new trials starting at SDNY that we're going to be covering. One is called Hanratty. It's kind of a white-collar case. Judge Schofield and 40. We'll do our best. And then there's a case that's going to be pretty fast, I think, unless the federal defenders find a way to extend it. The police barricades are going away. Why were they here? I'm not sure. This was post-Combs. Banyan, I think is the name of the case. In any case, it's a guy who came into the courthouse with ammunition in his bag, but they've managed to suppress a lot of the evidence from his iCloud, etc. And the trial, which is taking place like 2 months after the incident, which is almost unheard of before Judge Rakoff, should be a banger, and we're going to cover it. Now, speaking of bangers, over the weekend we wrote two UN scoops: corruption in UNISFA and ABA, corruption at UNODC in Vienna. We're going to the UN refuses to answer any questions about this stuff, but their own whistleblowers are absolutely devastating them. And I think it's a roadmap. The litmus test is coming. The press must be restored to access, and the various corruptions that we've exposed must be acted on. In any case, we're going in. Inner City Press.